All right. Next question we have is from Koopsivara. This says, "Hi, Brian and Drew. Favorite inks/pens to doodle/draw with?" Lots of slashes happening there. And then Drew, I think you dropped this second one in here because it's along the same lines. Egg Bunny says, "Best inks for extra fine or fine pens and best pens for illustration or artists." So kind of in that drawing vein. And we'll let you take this one because you do way more drawing than I do.
And that's not saying a whole lot. Like I don't draw anything and then keep it, but I do love to doodle, and I've been doodling all my life, and I greatly enjoy it. And fountain pens have helped me enjoy it more. So, regarding what Egg Bunny says, extra fines and fines are definitely, I think, the most common go-to choice. I know I prefer them because, you can always layer and add more strokes to thicken a line up. You can't kind of take them away. So starting with an extra fine, is always a great idea. I like a deep black, like a very flat, very, very dark black, usually a pigmented black if I'm doodling, and actually want it to look pretty awesome, like Sailor Kiwaguro or Platinum Carbon Black. They are really, really dense black, and they look really great on the paper, and they put down really, really solid lines. You could also go with a fast drying like gray, like Noodler's Lexington gray. That one is going to be a little bit more prone to feathering if you're using a more absorbent paper, but it dries fast, so you're not going to get your hands all inky, and it layers well. So if you wanted to use a gray, you can, if you have a broader nib, you can actually start to put layers on top of itself. So if you didn't want to just go with a flat black and you wanted a little bit more of a depth, then starting with a gray that you can stroke over is not a bad idea. For pens, I like an extra fine with a little bit of line variation, a little bit of bounce, like the Pilot Falcon. That one, I personally have a Pilot Custom 912, but I actually find that the Falcon is a little bit better at keeping up with a little bit of line variation than the 912. I personally love the 912, but I've found that I've needed to do some tweaking to get it to where I want it to be. And with the Falcon, I find that right out of the box, it performs a little bit more consistently, in my opinion. So starting with an extra fine Falcon, it's going to be a little scratchy, but it's tuned really well, so you don't need to put down a lot of pressure. Just drag. And that is great for cross-hatching. And then if you did want to thicken up the line a little bit, if you wanted to give an outline stroke or just define certain, shadows or other portions, starting off with it, they're like finishing up a crosshatch where it gets really, really dense and you just do one big stroke, flexing it just a little bit. Like the Falcon stock nib is not meant to be flexed and over and over and over again, but every now and then, if you want to just do a swoop, then it's great. You're not going to spring the tines doing it every so often with, paying attention to it, not over flexing it for sure. And then on the far end of the spectrum, if you wanted to not go extra fine or flex, using a big honkin' German broad or double broad if you can find it. We usually just sell the broads, but like a Pelican, gold nib broad or a Lamy 2000 gold nib broad, like those things. The fun part about those is that if you're doing really simplistic line art, you're talking just more like, like a logo or, a cartoon, just starting off with a big honking black line and having everything be the same width. There's something really clean looking about that. So that would be my other suggestion. If you're not going with the more detailed cross-hatching style, sticking with more of a stamp look, like more of like a, Charles Schultz sort of, comic vibe, like that broad will get you a really cartoony, clean, kind of classic look. And I like to do that from time to time as well. But I only doodle and mostly in black. If you're looking to do watercolors or washes or stuff like that, that's way out of my zone. I don't really have enough experience to recommend anything there. But the Diatramentis document series is definitely the where to look on our site if you did want to get something that's going to hold up to ink washes and watercolors, stuff like that. And finally, glass pens. Super fun to draw with, super fun to test out different inks if you are going to try to put different ink through its paces, whether it be different paper types, how it reacts to, saturation on paper, or how it reacts to water. Dipping a glass pen, using it, and then cleaning it is so easy. I don't know if you're going to want to write with it for long periods of time. Sometimes they're a little scratchy and you do have to re-dip them. But for testing and just playing around with, you can't pick anything better. They clean out so well. It's just a little bit of, water or pen flush, quick rub with a paper towel, you're good to go on the next one. They're fantastic and a lot of fun.
Yeah. I don't have a whole lot to add because as much as Drew says that he doesn't draw a lot, he just kind of doodles, I do even less. So most of my experience is through what I hear from others. So the only thing I really have to add to this is kind of on the ink washing front. If you remember a couple of podcasts ago, we talked about the UV resistance and light fastness of different inks. And I mentioned a very old blog post, almost 10-year-old blog post that we did in collaboration with Jamie Grossman from Hudson Valley Sketches. So kind of a cool, I'll get back to this question here, but just kind of a cool update related to that. Jamie actually reached out to us after watching the Pencast and was like, hey, thanks for the shout out. I'd actually be willing to test the newer inks that you have now if you wanted to send me some. And I was like, well, yeah, of course, that would be awesome. So we can get more of a complete list. So we've sent some inks to Jamie. Jamie's swabbed them up and is running the tests right now, likes to leave them in the sun for about 6 months or so. So we won't really have any results until probably June, but it's underway and that's pretty cool. So we'll have a lot of the Atramentis documents and some other various, ink things that have come out since 2012 or whenever we did it last. So thought that was kind of neat.
That's really awesome.
Yeah, isn't that cool?
I'm excited about that.
Very excited too. But if you are into like the ink washing side of things and that kind of drawing, Jamie's blog post is really great there. Has some cool artwork that she's done, as well as some good information about different ink tests. So I think those are just probably the best thing I can do is just point you there. But she sent me a really cool picture of one of the Diamine ink vent colors. Says really honestly, like asked me specifically, like, did Diamine make these to be really good for ink washing? Because said like the chromatic nature of these ink vent colors is phenomenal. And I was like, I don't know that that's specifically what they were going for. It might be kind of a happy consequence, but thought that was interesting feedback to pass along. Not that they're really available anymore, but they may bring some of them back like they did with the previous Inkvent, calendar colors. They brought some of them back. So if they happen to do that, it might be interesting for us to keep an eye on that. But specifically, she sent me a picture of Tempest, which she said is like the stunner. That was spoiler alert, not that you can really get one or spoil it for yourself now, but the number 4, which would have been, obviously week and a half ago if you've been actually doing the advent calendar thing with this ink set. But number 4 Tempest apparently was pretty awesome looking. So we'll throw some pictures up in the whatever video here if you want to take a look at it, but pretty wild looking. So very cool to see what people do with some of these things that are just, I never would have dreamed of people using these inks for these types of artwork, but it's pretty amazing. All right.